In today's video, I'm going to be sharing travel apps that you are not going to want to forget to download before your next trip, especially if you're traveling internationally. I feel like in 2024, we can all admit that it's pretty much a universal truth that we are traveling with one of these. And using your phone while traveling can be a great way to make your travel more efficient, find the best restaurants, save you money, as well as keep you safe while traveling. Make sure you stick around because after this video is done, you are going to come away with a list of travel apps that you're going to actually use. As we know, there's so many apps out there that do every single little thing, but I tried to cut out all the fluff with this list and make sure that I only included apps that Meg and I have actually tested and used. And I can still bet that even though we use almost every single one of these apps on every trip, that there's gonna be one on this list that you've probably still never even heard of. So let's get into this. Communication is super important when you're traveling. And one of the apps that's gonna really help you communicate better while traveling is called WhatsApp. This is a must download app in my opinion to help you communicate more efficiently, especially when traveling internationally. Now, for those of you that don't know, WhatsApp is a way to communicate using Wi-Fi. So you can send text messages as well as make voice calls for free using WhatsApp when you're not in cellular data, which is really important when you're traveling, especially if you need to get in contact with people. For example, the way we use WhatsApp the most is oftentimes when we're speaking to taxi drivers or Uber drivers, or we're trying to check into our Airbnb. We've even used it to make reservations at restaurants. WhatsApp is widely used across the world, and it is something that you're going to need to have downloaded on your phone before you travel internationally, because it'll help make communication way simpler and way easier. Staying on the topic of communication, it can be really difficult when you're traveling to another country and you don't speak that language. So one app that you need to have downloaded that's going to help you a ton is Google Translate. Now, most people are very familiar with Google Translate, but a lot of people are unfamiliar with how powerful this tool actually is. Now, Google Translate has your standard function with the text to translate, which most people are familiar with. You type in a phrase or sentence, and it translates it to the language that you're looking for. But there's also conversation translation, so I can talk into my phone, and then I can point it to whoever I'm trying to communicate with, and they can talk into it, and we can have a conversation back and forth just by voice. There's also a feature where it kind of has this whiteboard where you can draw with your hand a word or a symbol to translate, which is really nice if you don't have that language's keyboard downloaded on your phone. You can save common phrases. So say you're going to Mexico and you want to save a phrase that you might have to use often, like where's the bathroom? You can save that onto your phone. You can utilize your camera to point at things like a menu to translate a menu so that way you can understand it a little bit better. You can download your languages offline so you can use it when you're not in internet. Google Translate is a really powerful tool and should definitely be downloaded if you're traveling internationally. Have you ever been planning a trip and you start booking your flights, your accommodations, your transportation, your excursions, and maybe even a couple restaurant reservations, and you find yourself going back to your email and trying to find confirmations from months ago to remind yourself when all this stuff is happening? Well, there's an app called TripIt that is going to solve that problem instantly and really easily too. We all know that when you book a flight, it can be really hard to remember what time you leave. And what TripIt does is it's going to organize all of those details for you. It's really simple to use. All you do is when you get a confirmation for a flight or some sort of hotel reservation or restaurant reservation, you're just gonna forward that email or that confirmation to TripIt's system, and it's gonna organize all of that for you. So rather than going back to your email and trying to find something that you booked 4 months prior, you can just head right into the TripIt app and get all the information you need to keep everything nice and organized. That brings us to our most used travel app, which is, you can maybe guess it, Google Maps. Google Maps is, in my opinion, the most powerful travel app that you need to have downloaded on your phone. And my apologies for those of you here in the United States, most likely, that use Apple Maps, but Apple Maps just does not cut it when you're traveling internationally. And let me tell you why. Google Maps not only has super detailed maps, gives you turn-by-turn direction, just like Apple Maps does, but when it comes to getting around European cities, Southeast Asia, they have public transportation down to a science. So it can be really easy to look up a bus schedule or train schedule, and that way you don't have to worry about going to all these different websites. Number 2, Google Maps offers a feature called Google My Maps, which is an amazing resource that a lot of people actually don't know about. And what Google My Maps is it allows you to customize a Google map to reflect exactly what you want to see. I actually made an entire video about this, so I'll make sure to link it above or below in the description, and you should definitely check that out to unlock the full power of Google Maps. Please leave a comment below if there's a travel app that you use regularly that I didn't mention in today's video. I can probably bet that I'm going to be making a version 2 of this video, being that technology is always advancing, and I want to hear your recommendations. So please put any travel apps that you use below, especially if I don't mention it in today's video. Now, everybody has a little bit of a different travel style, but for me personally, my favorite part of traveling is activities, excursions, adventures. Now, some people, it might be food, it might be museums, but for me, it's excursions and getting out and doing epic stuff. And there's really 4 main apps that I use to book various adventures. We have Get Your Guide, Viator, Airbnb Experiences, and TripAdvisor. All 4 of these I like and use for various reasons. One app might have something that the other doesn't, so whenever I'm planning a trip, I usually try to look at all 4. Airbnb Experiences is something that people don't really know about, and you should definitely get familiar with. We've found that Airbnb Experiences offer a much smaller group and really cool, authentic experiences, usually run by like 1 or 2 people. We've done some awesome experiences in Italy, whether it be truffle hunting or yoga on the top of some beautiful terrace looking over Florence. Airbnb Experiences has some really cool activities and gems that you should definitely take a look at. Viator and Get Your Guide, to me, are kind of similar in the sense that you're usually going to be in a bigger group, and I say usually, this is not always the case, but we found that it's usually a bigger group and it's going to hit your main tourist attractions. Now, don't forget about TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is kind of old school, like I feel like my mom used to use TripAdvisor, but what's really nice about TripAdvisor is because it's been in the travel space for so long, there's a ton of reviews and you're going to get a really good idea of what kind of experience you're going to get. Meg and I booked this awesome cooking class through TripAdvisor in Chiang Mai and had a great experience. So again, don't forget about TripAdvisor. For those of you that have been around our channel for a bit of time, you probably will know that Meg and I love to be outside, specifically hiking. And one app that we love to use when traveling is called AllTrails. I found this app to be the best database for finding great hikes and trails. What's awesome about AllTrails is so many people use it, so you can get really awesome updates on things like weather and trail conditions, so that way you can be super prepared for your hike. They do a nice job with detailed maps, as well as noting various trail conditions and difficulties, so that way, again, you are super prepared. One example of this is when we were in Seattle just recently. We were kind of in between seasons and we weren't sure if the trail was open or if the conditions were good enough. And what's nice is I can go on the app and look to see who did the hike a couple hours earlier or even yesterday, so I can get really good updates on what we can expect for a hike. If you haven't tried out AllTrails, I would highly recommend it. They have a free version and a paid version. I still use the free version. But anyways, AllTrails, if you like to be outside and hike, is going to be the best app. You need money to travel, and when you're traveling, you also need to know how much things cost. And when you're traveling to a country that doesn't use the same currency as yourself, it can be kind of confusing and is something you definitely want to have a good handle on. So having some sort of currency converter is going to be ideal, so that way you make sure that you're not overpaying for something or getting scammed, as well as just to know the price of something. I use an app called Currency. By no means is this the best app. This is just one that I found like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I like it because it's simple. It's super easy to use. I know there's probably way better apps out there for currency exchange, so let me know if you have any recommendations down in the comments. But the one that I use, again, is just literally called Currency. Very easy to use, but it's something I use all the time. I feel like sometimes the most stressful part of traveling is getting around. And you're gonna wanna make sure you do your research for how you're going to get around. And the main way we like to get around when we're traveling is through rideshare apps. Now, there's a ton of different apps out there, especially depending on where you are traveling. So I would highly recommend doing your research and looking up the rideshare apps for that destination. For example, here in the United States, Uber and Lyft are very prevalent, but that is not the case all over the world. For example, in Southeast Asia, one that's really popular is called Grab. One thing that I would also recommend is make sure you get your payment set up before you travel. We made this mistake early on in our travels where we didn't set up our payment until we downloaded the app in the destination, and we had issues connecting our bank account or a credit card to that app. And it can be kind of hard to get around if you can't pay for it. So if you want to prevent that issue, make sure you set up your credit card or your bank account within that app before you travel. Staying up to date with your flight information is really important, and the best way to do that is to download the Airline app. So whatever airline you're flying, you're going to want to make sure you download the app before you travel. Again, we have found this to be the best way to stay up to date on flight times, delays, cancellations, boarding pass issues. Maybe you need to change your schedule completely. Doing it through the corresponding airline app is the easiest way to do it. Especially if you run into some sort of issue while traveling, whether it be lost baggage or your flight gets completely canceled and you need to make adjustments, you're going to have all the information that you need right at your fingertips. Also, these airline apps now will give you access to things like Wi-Fi, or if you want to purchase certain drinks or snacks while you're in flight, that can be a great way to use the app as well. I don't know about you, but I am always looking for flight deals. And honestly, Meg and I will travel to destinations just based on where we can find a cheap flight. And recently, I've been using a tool that has really taken a lot of work out of finding these deals. And it's called FareDrop. FareDrop is a flight deal service that is going to alert you to amazing flight deals and flight prices. And I'm not talking about just like $50 or $100 savings. I'm talking about $500 savings, $600 savings. It is actually unreal, and it takes all the work out of it for yourself. You're going to get alerts based on parameters that you set, your home airport, where you want to travel for the best flight deals out there. One of the features that I really like that they have that I haven't found in any other flight deal service is their search bar. You can search different destinations to see if you're getting the best deal possible because they have data in there based on what flight prices were to that destination previously. So you can have a lot of confidence in knowing that you're getting the best deal possible. If you want to try out FareDrop, I'll leave a link below in the description. When it comes to booking accommodations, there are literally hundreds of options, but a few that I've used and like are Airbnb, VRBO, Hostelworld, Booking.com, Hotels.com. All are great options. I would say the two that I use the most are Airbnb and Booking.com. Starting with Airbnb, we really like Airbnb because it's pretty user-friendly and there's tons of great options out there. We usually do an Airbnb for a longer stay. That way we can get a little bit more comfortable and spread out a bit more. You can also find some really cool experiences by renting out a room and staying with a local. So Airbnb offers a really diverse range of accommodations, which we really like. Booking.com we use often for hotels. Oftentimes when we're traveling in countries that we're a little less familiar with, the websites of those accommodations can be kind of hard to navigate. Whether we're in Southeast Asia and the websites just don't work at all, or we're in Europe and it's hard to understand the language and it's just a little confusing. So whenever we're booking hotels, we often use Booking.com. We found it to be really easy to use, and you can see a lot of reviews on there. One app that I do want to mention that a lot of people don't know about, and especially if you're from the United States, Canada, Australia, or the UK, you're going to want to look into this, and it's called Hipcamp. Hipcamp. And this is kind of a unique accommodations app, especially if you're somebody that likes outdoors. You like to camp, you like to tent camp, you like to RV. Hipcamp has some really unique and fun accommodations that deserve you taking a look. One really awesome place we stayed here in Minnesota was this it used to be a chicken coop, and we stayed there in February, and it was so snowy and just basically a winter wonderland. And again, we stayed right inside this old chicken coop. So on Hipcamp, you can find some really fun, unique accommodations that will maybe give you an experience that you never thought you would have. So I would highly recommend checking out Hipcamp as well. I made an entire video about how to travel the world for cheap. Meg and I, back in 2022, traveled the world for a full year on a budget of just $15,000 per person. And in that video, I tell you how we did it. Tons of great money-saving tips for your travels, so that way you can travel more. I hope you enjoyed this one though. I hope you now have a list of travel apps that you should download for your next international trip that is going to make your travels way easier and way more efficient. If you enjoyed this video though, please give it a thumbs up, as well as leave any app recommendations down below in the comments, because I can bet I'll probably be doing a part 2 of this video. Make sure to subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you in the next video. Whew.